All right, let's dive right into this explainer. If you play Dungeons & Dragons, you probably know the vibe of a typical warlock, but today's patron is a bit more unsettling. We're looking at the Mycelial Sovereign. This is a patron that turns your character into a living vector for nature's inevitable breakdown. If you've ever wanted your magic to feel less like a pristine arcane art and more like a creeping biological inevitability, you are absolutely going to love this. Today we're breaking down the mechanics, the incredibly gritty flavor, and the strategic depth of this unique fungal subclass. Here's our agenda for today. 1. Meet the Mycelial Sovereign. 2. Spore-borne spells. 3. Mid-tier fungal defenses. 4. Reclaiming the dead. And 5. Pros, cons, and strategy. Section 1. Meet the Mycelial Sovereign, the Spore. Check out this quote from the source text. Your patron is a primordial, subterranean intelligence. You tethered your soul to the eternal cycle of decay. That is beautifully eerie, isn't it? You're not making a deal with a run-of-the-mill fiend or some whimsical fae. We're talking about a vast, continent-spanning fungal network, maybe even an ancient entity like Zuggtmoy, the demon queen of fungi. Think about the narrative hooks here. Imagine being hunted by a mycelial hulk, one of those towering, shambling mounds of rotting wood and glowing purple spores that serves as your patron's enforcer. You aren't just borrowing magic. Your very body is being colonized to spread that inevitable rot. You literally become the ultimate recycler. And looking at the progression of this subclass, you can see exactly how that colonization happens. We go from learning spore-borne spells and necrotic blooms at level 3, all the way up to resurrecting the dead at level 14. We're going to dissect how each of these features, slowly but surely, transforms your warlock from a standard spellcaster into a terrifying walking ecosystem. Section 2. Spore-borne spells and blooms. The mycelium spreads. Right off the bat, the spore-borne spells list turns you into an absolute monster of a battlefield controller. You're getting access to massive area of effect hazards. We're talking spike growth, cloud kill, and plant growth. Spells that let you completely dictate where enemies can even move. But my absolute favorite flavor note here, the 4th level spell, Giant Insect. Because you aren't just summoning normal bugs. Oh no. You're calling forth terrifying, fungal parasite-infected insects to do your dirty work. It's so gross and so perfectly on theme. Now, at 3rd level, you get Necrotic Bloom. The absolutely crucial thing to understand here is the incredible action economy. It only costs the bonus action. So with a bonus action, you drop a 10-foot radius cloud of parasitic spores up to 60 feet away. If the bad guys fail a constitution save, they take damage. And you actually get to choose between poison or necrotic, which is great for bypassing resistances. But here's the kicker. They also suffer the poison condition until your next turn. That means disadvantage on their attack rolls and ability checks. So you're severely debuffing a group of enemies, and you still have your main action to drop a massive spell like Cloud Kill. That is a total game changer. And here's a really cool synergy with the standard D&D Warlock rules. Whenever you use your 2nd level Warlock feature, Magical Cunning, that esoteric 1-minute right to get half your pack magic slots back, you also regain 1 expended use of your Necrotic Bloom. It's a fantastic little mechanical tie-in that basically ensures you almost always have your spores ready to go for the next combat encounter. Section 3. Mid-tier fungal defenses, the fruiting body. Let's look at level 6. You get Decomposition Shield, which is an amazing deterrent for melee enemies. Picture this. An enemy runs up and hits you, and your actual flesh reacts by blooming with protective mold. You use your reaction, and they take unavoidable necrotic damage equal to your warlock level. Then they have to make a strength save, or they literally slip and fall prone in a sudden patch of slick, decomposing mulch right at your feet. It's a brilliant, highly thematic way to punish anyone foolish enough to get into close combat with you. Moving up to level 10, your nervous system essentially knits itself with fungal hyphae with the fungal intermediary feature. Mechanically, this is huge. You gain flat immunity to the poisoned condition, plus resistance to both poison and necrotic damage. In any monster-heavy campaign, that is a massive defensive upgrade. But it gets even better. You also get telepathy with plant and fungus creatures. So if you're dungeon delving and run into a shrieker or a violet fungus, classic subterranean hazards, you can just talk to them. And you get advantage on charisma checks to influence them. You literally become the diplomat of the undergrowth. Section 4. Reclaiming the dead. The cycle continues. All right, let's walk through your 14th level capstone, the Spore Lord's Reclamation. Here are the procedural steps. A humanoid dies within 60 feet of you.
You don't even have to wait for your turn. You use your reaction to instantly erupt fungal stalks from their body, animating it immediately as a fungal zombie. Think about that for a second. It's an incredible swing in the action economy. You're taking an enemy off the board and instantly putting a meat shield back on it in the blink of an eye.
The minion itself uses the standard zombie stat block from the monster manual, but there's a catch. It counts as a plant, not undead, and it gets poison immunity. It acts right after your turn, follows your verbal commands for an hour, and then just collapses into a harmless pile of spores. You get to do this once for free per long rest, but the absolute craziest part? You can reuse this ability by expending a Pact Magic spell slot. And since warlocks get their spell slots back so easily, you could theoretically raise an entire fungal horde over the course of an adventuring day. No way, right? It's so good.
Section 5. Pros, Cons, and Strategy. The Harvest.
So how do we actually play this? The area control from your spells and those defensive traits are obviously spectacular. But we have to talk about the elephant in the room, the cons. A huge drawback you have to plan for is that a lot of core monsters in D&D, like pretty much all fiends, are completely immune to poison. So how do we strategize around that? Well, pick up the investment of the Chainmaster Eldritch Invocation that lets you change your familiar's damage to necrotic. You could also grab the Cloak of Flies invocation, but flavorfully reskin those flies as a permanent swarm of toxic spores floating around you. And hey, if your DM allows Homebrew, ask about drafting a custom feat, something like Toxic Acclamation that gives you advantage against magical contagion effects and lets your poison spells ignore standard poison resistance. That would totally balance out the build. Ultimately, playing the Mycelial Sovereign is a commitment. You're choosing to become a terrifying force of nature's darkest recycling system. It heavily rewards players who love managing the battlefield, debuffing enemies on the fly, and just fully leaning into the gritty biological horror of the deep earth. So, with all that power over life, death, and decomposition, are you ready to embrace the decay?